This is my evaluation for the Metamorphosis project, which was a group project on creating a film multimedia piece that incorporates animation and photography to show a piece that encapsulates the theme of metamorphosis. For my group, we went down the route of South Asian mythology, specifically talking about the Pontianak. I think I would definitely say my group worked well together. We were great at communicating with each other. We had a WhatsApp group that we kept updating each other on, and we were very good at letting each other know our availabilities and how we were getting along with character designs and storyboards. The planning process was very easy because, in terms of for me being a director, it was easier than I have had on other projects because it was sort of taken upon the group as a whole rather than just me doing all of it. So I think we were very good at spreading out the amount of work everyone did equally. I would say there was a lot of workload because I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I think we went very big with our idea. But there was a lot of workload, but we all had an equal share of it, and I think that's kind of why we managed to get through it as much as we did, because everyone knew clearly what they were doing, and when they were doing it, I made timelines for each week. I set out the main thing of the day that was going to be focused on, and we kind of had two teams for production. We had the animation team, and then we had the team that was on set doing filming and photography. So I think we worked well. We were also in creative development and idea development. We were very good at bouncing ideas with each other. I think everyone was quite comfortable sharing feedback with each other as well, which was good. There wasn't really anyone just saying, oh yeah, it's fine. There was constructive criticism. When we were doing the character designs, everyone kind of had a say in how the character would look. So we kind of looked at the character designs as a group, and then kind of said individually what our favourite parts of it were. And then some of us had similar favourite parts, and we kind of said that those should definitely be emphasised because the group kind of thinks that they're very good features. And that character design, Nicole ended up doing the sort of final character sheet for that. So I would say we were good communicators. We were good at sharing ideas, bouncing ideas, giving feedback. In terms of how everyone got on with completing the work, I think the rest of the group, everyone really did pull their weight and do the tasks that were set of them. Because I was director and producer alongside Connor, I was setting a lot of essentially organising what people were doing on what days, and letting them know what needed to be done. There was a lot of timelining involved in my role, and I was continuously trying to make sure that people knew that if the workload was too big, that I wanted them to tell me, and I think that definitely got through to everyone. And I was repeatedly saying that I think everyone got on with their workload fine, apart from Shahin. And the only thing with that was there was a thing that came up with outside of uni work, which then meant that there were a bunch of animations he couldn't finish, which was unfortunate and a little bit stressful because it was right towards the end of the project. But I mean, the group really came together on that, and Rosie and Connor took on that extra workload to finish the animation. Those animations, which obviously weren't done to the same quality as they could have been if Shahin would have been able to do them throughout the week, because they were done literally in one night. But that was amazing on Rosie and Connor's part that they managed to even get that done. So yeah, I think even when there were, as a whole, we didn't really have any problems as a group, but even when there were slight problems, I think we still managed as a group to deal with them, which was nice and not really something I've gone through before with a group. I don't usually actually enjoy group projects. When I went into this project, I was very stressed, and I didn't really want to direct or produce. Kind of ended up doing that because the ideas I had put down on the mind map was the stuff about the Pontianak and Southeast and South Asian mythology, and that was kind of what the group found most interesting. And because it was my idea and I knew most about it, it ended up being me directing and producing. And I didn't really want to because I haven't had great experiences with directing and producing in group settings in these short form uni projects with new people. But this was actually a pleasant surprise, and it went really well. And yeah, in terms of the final product, unfortunately, it's not finished. Because of the delays with the animation, because of the whole Shahin thing where then Rosie and Connor had to do it, what ended up happening was that I could only get so far into doing a final cut because I was editing late into the night to try and keep adding on the animations that Rosie and Connor were doing. And it also meant that there were some issues with animations and things had to be changed around that I'd already edited already. So I had a final cut, but that cut still needed some adjustments with color grading, and I think there were scenes that just needed to be cut down. And I think there were a few scenes that when we watched back the whole thing with the sound, we kind of were saying to maybe get rid of the dialogue because we felt the acting kind of took away from the piece and it might work better without dialogue. But then when we did the screening, we got feedback that the entire thing was too long and that people didn't really understand the end bits, and I guess maybe the piece doesn't provide enough context to the mythology, but I feel we kind of didn't really want to provide context. The point wasn't really to provide context to the mythology. The point was to create discussion about it, if that makes sense. So we're trying to kind of just talk about the mythology without really providing context for the audience, so that the audience that already knows the mythology feels represented, if that makes sense. They someone who's from Southeast Asia and comes across something like that will kind of relate to that and be oh, I know that story. That's really interesting that it's in this format. And so it wasn't really for necessarily a demographic that doesn't know it, but maybe again that was a thing to think about. So essentially what ended up happening was from the feedback, they didn't like it at all, and it needed to be changed drastically. So I kind of made a revision of that where it was more of an analog horror, and instead of a like film, so it's more of an analog horror, which still included the work that we had done, but was just completely in a different edit and format. And I kind of wrote out a script for that, and then re-edited it, but I didn't do all of it because there were other projects that I needed to do after this project, and I also discussed it with Grace, and she felt like I've kind of put out the vision of what we would do with it, and that's enough. So I've done, I think, the first 2 minutes I edited of that, so that's kind of like an idea of what we would do if we had more time, based on feedback we got from the screening, feedback we got from Laura, and kind of based on discussions we had as a group, and I also did analog horror research for that as well. From this project, I have learnt that I struggle to conceptualize how big a project might be. I come from being very used to doing 4-week projects. That was how my old college used to do these projects. They were all group projects, and they would all be 4 weeks long. And I think when I was set to direct this piece, I still went with the mentality of the 4-week project, because it felt like a bigger group project, and I kind of ended up making too much work for ourselves. I don't know if my group feel the same, but I definitely feel like we were all extremely overworked, and I am very sorry, and I feel like that was partially my fault because I went with that idea of like the amount of work that we did essentially was what we should have done in a 4-week project rather than a 2-week project, and I should have definitely condensed down more what we were doing. I think the script, like the concept, was quite long, so that could have been condensed down, which would have meant we had less to do in general. So yeah, there was that. But the issue with like the script and the length of the piece was we did ask how long it should be. I mean, we didn't get a time limit given back to us, so we thought that we would be fine doing the whole like 6 to 8 minute type thing. So yeah, I have learnt that I need to try and think more about how much I can realistically get done in the given time, and think more realistically about like, this is the amount of weeks you have, this is the stuff you need to do, and then sort of prioritize out the stuff that I think I need to do, what I actually need to do in that time. Yeah, so for projects going forth, I will try and be more realistic with the amount that I do in that week. And also, I think for this project, I struggled writing up onto my site a lot because I kind of got really involved in the like directing and producing and organizing the group type thing, and I got so like, I got so deeply involved in organizing the rest of the group that I think I then ran out of time to actually write up on my site, which you'll see there's not very much written up, because I did a lot of work for this project, but it just feels like, I don't know, it just feels like it evaporated or something, because a lot of it was me organizing people and me saying, okay, you need to do this and this and this today, you need to do this and this and this today, which I suppose is technically the job of like director and producer, but it becomes sort of hard to translate into my site. And I think what ended up happening was that I kind of forgot about my site and just pushed it out of my mind, because the idea of doing both of those at the same time was way too overwhelming. So I ended up just focusing on doing the actual project rather than also focusing on like doing the evidence for the project. So in future projects, I think it'll be less like that because there's less group projects now in the future. But when there are group projects, I'll try and focus myself equally on writing up and on the group and the project itself. I think I want to try and like write up a little bit more consistently, and make sure I kind of start off the week by writing, because when I don't really do that, I think I end up falling behind on that. But yeah, this is very long, but I just felt like there was a lot to talk about because I haven't written up anything on the site, so basically everything is in here. Anyways, this is the end of the evaluation.